So, what if I told you that almost every single country on Earth, with all its unique culture, history, and people, can ultimately be classified into just a handful of government types? Some nations are ruled by the people, right? Others by a king or a queen. Some are completely controlled by a single political party, and a few are steered by military leaders. It sounds incredibly complex, I know, but once you decode these structures, the entire globe actually starts to make a whole lot more sense.
Welcome to this explainer. I am literally so excited to be your guide today as we explore the architectures of power. Our mission over the next few minutes is pretty straightforward. We're going to break down the major forms of government, figure out exactly how they work, and see where they actually exist in our modern world. So if you've ever wanted a clear, structural understanding of global politics, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's quickly run through our roadmap for today. We'll be moving across a spectrum of power. 1. Power to the people. 2. The crown and elite. 3. Absolute control and ideology. And 4. The hybrid reality. Let's get into it. Section 1. Power to the people. This is where we look at democracies and republics, the systems designed to keep the reins of power firmly in the hands of the citizens. The most prominent of these systems is democracy. The word itself comes from ancient Greek, and it literally translates to rule by the people. Think of it like a massive group project, but one where every single member actually gets a say. In a democracy, citizens are essentially the shareholders of the country. You choose your leaders through elections, and you maintain the right to vote, express your opinions freely, and actively participate in political decisions.
Now, this brings us to the two main ways a democracy actually functions. Direct democracy is that classic ancient Athenian model where citizens vote directly on the actual laws. But let's be real, for a country of millions, voting on every single road repair just isn't feasible. That's exactly why we have representative democracy. It's basically the difference between cooking a massive 10-course banquet yourself versus hiring a professional chef to do it for you. Most modern democracies today use this representative system. But every system has a ledger of trade-offs, right? Representative democracy is definitely no exception. Look at the advantages. You've got high citizen participation, strong protection of individual rights, and the absolute gold standard of stability, which is the peaceful transfer of power. But on the flip side, consider the challenges. Because so many voices are involved, these systems are highly prone to political polarization. Decision-making can be painstakingly slow, and of course, because campaigning requires resources, the influence of money in politics is a constant, ongoing hurdle. Now, closely linked to democracy is the concept of a republic. Basically, a republic is a government where the country is fundamentally considered a public matter. It is not the private property or the personal estate of a ruler. Most modern democracies around the world are also republics, with the head of state usually being an elected president rather than a monarch. The foundational idea here is absolutely crucial. Political power originates from the citizens, not from hereditary bloodline. Moving right along to Section 2, the crown and elite. We are now shifting our focus on the spectrum of power to systems where influence narrows significantly.
First up, let's look at monarchy. This is a system where a king, queen, emperor, or a similar ruler serves as the head of state. If a republic treats a country as a public matter, a traditional monarchy treats ruling almost like a family business. It's passed down through generations, just, with way more castles and formal ceremonies. What's really interesting here is how the role of a monarch can vary drastically in the modern world. In an absolute monarchy, the monarch holds most of the political power, heavily influencing or just completely controlling government decisions. On the flip side, we have the constitutional monarchy. Here, the monarch serves primarily as a symbolic figurehead, like a living symbol of the nation, while actual elected officials manage the day-to-day running of the government. In fact, many of the monarchies we see out there today follow this constitutional model.
Just as we did with democracy, let's objectively look at the ledger for a monarchy. The advantages center heavily on continuity. A monarch can provide a really profound sense of national unity, tying the present to deep historical traditions, which often translates to long-term political stability. But the disadvantages are equally clear. Leadership is hereditary. That means competence isn't guaranteed by an election, and the public has highly limited, if any, influence over who actually takes the throne next.
Another system of narrowed influence is the oligarchy. This is government by a small group of powerful individuals. Think of it like a very exclusive VIP room that dictates what happens in the rest of the venue. Power might be held by extremely wealthy families, top business leaders, high-ranking military officials, or entrenched political elites. What's absolutely vital to understand here is that even if a country holds elections, if the real structural influence remains concentrated among a tiny, limited number of people, Well, you're looking at an oligarchy. All right, moving into our third section, absolute control and ideology. This is where we explore systems where public influence is severely restricted. First up, let's define authoritarianism. In an authoritarian system, political power is highly concentrated in the hands of a single leader or a very small group. The defining characteristic here is restriction. Citizens have highly limited influence over government decisions. Political opposition faces strict barriers or outright bans, and the media, along with public expression, are often tightly controlled by the state to maintain the established order. When looking at authoritarianism impartially, we see a very different set of arguments. Supporters of these systems argue that because power is centralized and there is literally no need for lengthy public debates or legislative gridlock, decisions can be made and executed incredibly quickly. Critics, however, argue that this efficiency comes at a severe cost, fundamentally reducing individual freedoms and removing any real accountability for the leaders. Now, a specific extreme form of authoritarianism is a dictatorship. This is a government where one single person holds extensive political power. Unlike a monarchy where power is inherited, dictators often gain control through force, maybe during times of intense political crisis or with heavy military backing. In a dictatorship, opposition parties may be entirely banned, and if elections do occur, they are generally not competitive at all. Next, we examine communism. Now, communism is unique on our list because it is simultaneously a political and an economic ideology. The foundational goal is to create a classless society where major resources are collectively owned rather than privately held. In practical historical terms, however, communist states have typically been governed politically by a single, unchallenged political party. Again, looking entirely objectively at the arguments surrounding this ideology, which, by the way, profoundly shaped the 20th century, supporters emphasize its focus on economic equality and the collective provision of basic needs. Critics, on the other hand, point directly to the severe limits placed on political competition and individual liberties, as well as the historical economic challenges faced by centrally planned economies. To round out this section on absolute control, we have two distinct variations. A theocracy is a government guided entirely by religious authority, where religious laws play a central role in governance, and leaders often hold religious positions. A military government, on the other hand, emerges when armed forces take direct control of political power. This usually happens to prioritize order and security following a coup or a period of intense political instability. Okay, let's move to our fourth and final section, the hybrid reality, and see how all of these definitions build into the actual, complex modern world. So here is the ultimate twist of this explainer. Most countries do not fit perfectly into just one of those neat little boxes we've discussed today. The global architecture of power is actually a messy, fascinating blend of these labels. Many nations combine features from several systems. For example, the United States is both a republic and a representative democracy. Meanwhile, countries like the United Kingdom or Japan, they're constitutional monarchies, but they operate with highly democratic parliamentary systems. The big takeaway here is that government structures are incredibly complex, and a single label rarely tells the whole story. So why does all this matter to us? Well, it matters because governments shape nearly every single aspect of your daily life. They dictate the rules of the road, the taxes you pay, the rights you enjoy, and the safety you rely on. By understanding how these different systems function, we gain a much deeper, more grounded understanding of world history, international politics, and honestly, the headlines we read every single day. I love this quote because it brilliantly summarizes the central thesis of our explainer today. No government system is perfect. Each has strengths, weaknesses, and unique challenges. Every system we've explored is essentially an attempt by humanity to solve the incredibly difficult problem of how to organize society. And every single choice comes with its own unique ledger of pros and cons. I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. Which system best balances freedom, stability, and effective leadership? Is it even possible to maximize all three, or is a trade-off completely inevitable? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time as we continue to decode the world around us.